Next up, I want to kind of welcome up another friend of Space Ag who has been a great advocate for us as we get this kind of niche industry built out and growing. That is Mike Vinje with NASA. He is the Small Business Technology Manager at Kennedy Space Center, and he's a great champion for how startups can engage with NASA. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Mike.
Well, thank you so much, and it's great to hear your voice again. And appreciate all the buildup for the SBIR program. I couldn't ask for anything more. I'd like to just go right into what the SBIR program is, and my apologies for everybody who's familiar with it, but very quickly. There was some legislature that was put together in the early 80s where any federal agency that's doing research and development, they have to take a percentage of their budget and port it directly to small businesses. The mechanism for that is called the Small Business Innovation Research Program, SBIR. There's a sister program, the STTR program, that is very closely related. On the slide here, you can see the different federal agencies that are doing SBIR. The top row here do SBIR and STTR. The big difference between the two programs is SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research, can be accomplished by a small business by itself. STTR, if you're going to go after an STTR opportunity, you must have a research institute as a partner. So the small business needs to find a university or college or somebody like that who can team up and partner with them, and then they're eligible for the STTR opportunities. And something I want to say right up front, which is very important, the SBIR opportunities, the ones which you can go with just as a company by yourself, those are very popular. It's a highly competitive program. STTR, because there are less teams, less combined teams of universities and small businesses, there are less opportunities. However, there's so many less teams proposing that your success rate is actually significantly higher in the STTR program than the SBIR program. So just as a word of advice out there for all small businesses and startups, even if it may seem like you have nothing in your near future that is lining you up to where you might need to work with a research institute, it's generally a really good idea to strike up an affiliation with the research institute so that you're prepared to be able to go after opportunities as a joint team, because you definitely do have more opportunities and probably a higher success rate as a joint team than by yourself. So to continue, the SBIR program is a way we develop technology inside NASA where we are relying heavily, if not entirely, on small businesses. We basically lay out, here's the technology that we need, and then we let companies propose and develop the technology. And this technology is used right at the cutting edge of NASA's operations and missions. As an example here, this is the Perseverance rover. And these are just the some of the SBIR companies that are mixed in terms of technology. You're very much at the front lines of what NASA's doing out in space once you've got SBIR technology that we've adopted. The basics of how the SBIR program work are pretty similar from agency to agency, but what I have up here on the screen is NASA's specific setup. The way it works is companies can compete to win a phase 1 award to start their involvement. The solicitations that have all the phase 1 activities in them, they come out in January. Roughly speaking, the second week of January is when they come out. So they've already come out for this year, the previous January. We are actually at the point now where we're receiving our phase 1 proposals within the system. And then I think the award is somewhere in May, if I remember right. So we're currently actually in the process of evaluating the 2023 phase 1 SBIR and STTR proposals. And the overall process, the way it works is that NASA puts out research topics, technical challenges, technology challenges that we want some help on. And they'll usually be about a page and a half long, describing the whole situation, explaining where it is we have the problem, and including references and different pieces of information like that. Companies are invited to register with SBIR and then submit a proposal. It's a 20-page proposal maximum. And in most cases that I hear, it's a pretty significant amount of effort to develop this proposal and be competitive. Probably at least $10,000 or $15,000 is what most companies say they put into a proposal in terms of just raw effort. The proposals are gathered up within NASA, and then we have a very extensive ranking and evaluation process to figure out which ones that we are going to award. And I think, roughly speaking, it's in the low 20% success rate for a phase one SBIR. It's a little bit higher for a phase one STTR because, as I said earlier, there's literally less teams that are competing for the awards. So you have a higher success rate. I think it's in the high 20s for winning a phase one STTR. After you've won your award, we give you a period of time, 6 months in the case of SBIR or 13 months in the case of STTR, to basically use your phase one to help flesh out your technology development plan. A lot of times in a phase one, if there's any initial challenges or analysis they need to do to prove the overall concept, they might do that. But NASA is not expecting technology to be developed at the end of phase one. We really want to see a technology development plan at the end of phase one. And at the end of phase one, you're invited to submit your phase two proposal, which is really the meatier one. That's a 2-year proposal. These days, we're sending out $850K maximum for your phase two work. And at the end of that phase two work, we are kind of expecting to see something like a prototype or a software routine or some sort of a hard result of your tech development. The overall effort is meant to get technology up to this phase two level. By the end of the phase two, it's usually at TRL 5 or 6. That's technology readiness level, with 1 being just an initial idea, and 6 basically means that the technology works kind of on a benchtop or in a lab environment, but maybe not so much in a relevant environment. And to go from TRL 6 all the way up to the final TRL 9 is a question of how much more testing in relevant environments you can get done, and also a question of how much testing you can get done on behalf of the organizations receiving the technology, because depending on where the technology goes, there might be some completely different testing involved. On the right-hand side, you see phase 3. Phase 3 contracts are basically the general purpose miscellaneous contracts that result of your phase 1 and phase 2 work. They can, a successful SBIR project may progress through phase 1 and phase 2, but never have a phase 3 where somebody is trying to get additional activity done off the company. Our goal is to make that additional activity happen, but it doesn't always happen. A phase 3 award basically can come from any company that's received any SBIR award. So imagine if you're a company, if you won a phase 1, but you never won a phase 2. Because of your winning of that phase 1 award, there could be somebody who comes to you from the government who says, hey, we want to work further with this technology. We're going to give you some money. That would be a phase 3 contract, and you could continue on. I was showing us, there's some other things on this graphic that are worth pointing out. The orange box on the left, I-Core. What I-Core is something that came out of National Science Foundation. We've been doing it for maybe 4 or 5 years. Essentially, when you are putting together your proposal, you have the opportunity to check the I-Core's box. And what that is we'll put some extra money on top of the award. And the I-Core program is essentially a customer discovery program. It's meant to take scientists and engineers who really don't do much in the way of marketing and kind of teach them how to get out there and market and talk to customers and do a bit of market discovery. The literal plan that I've heard for a lot of I-Core itineraries is to get that company to interview 100 different prospective customers so that you can start to really get a sense of who needs your stuff and who doesn't need your stuff. And that can be a very eye-opening and very rewarding sort of evaluation. I'd like to just suggest, regardless of whether or not any small businesses listening are going to get involved in the SBIR program, do take a look at I-Core and see whether or not there's a marketing program like that could be of advantage to you. I think there's multiple ways of entering that sort of activity, not just through the SBIR program. The TABA is basically an additional business assistance funding that you can get to help you with the business development side of the project, and that's an additional little pot of money that you can do to help make your proposal work go better. On the bottom here, I want to explain, although we're pretty good at getting technology kind of halfway up the development chart to TRL 6, there's a big problem of trying to get across what they call the valley of death, where the technology development has happened, but now the customer for the technology needs to get involved, and the final work done needs to be specific for that customer's needs. So the final infusion recipient of the technology needs to be involved. And that's what these lower boxes are about, these post-phase 2 opportunities. What literally happens is, as you're developing your technology and you're in a phase 2, if you can find a customer, another NASA program, somebody in industry, just somebody other than SBIR itself, who is interested in receiving that technology, we, the SBIR program, can match any kind of funding that future customer gives you up to $375K. So that's that phase 2E that's on the bottom there left. So as you discover customers out there who are willing to put in a little bit of money, our program can also sweeten that pot and double that money so that we can help bridge that transition and get your technology into full utilization. Another example of that is a phase 2 sequential, where we decide internally that we have some specific area we want to have some more activity on, and we'll go to companies that have already done a phase 2 contract with us and invite them to submit a new phase 2 proposal, and we'll fund a phase 2 again. So we'll get 2 phase 2s in a row. We do that for some specific emphasis areas. When on a particular year, if the agency's deciding we want to make some more progress in one area or another, we'll go and throw some money that direction. And the last one on the bottom there, the CCRPP, horrible acronym, but essentially it's another matching sort of thing. If you have an outside customer or destination program that your technology is going to go to, whatever money that they can contribute early, we can match that all the way up to $2.5 million. So you could get a total of $5 million out of that CCRPP effort. And then the larger scheme of things with this post-phase 2 stuff, you're looking at as much as $7-8 million you can get total for your tech development, all coming from NASA. Now, coming from NASA and the ultimate customers. One thing I want to point out that's very important about SBIR, your first proposal that you put in to win your phase 1 is a competitive exercise. And what that means is, once you receive an award for SBIR, phase 1 award or phase 2, that technology you are considered the sole source provider of that technology across the federal government. Literally meaning that if somebody, you may start in the NASA SBIR program and develop something through a phase 1. If there is a customer for that in the Department of Defense or somewhere else, all you have to do is point out to them that it was created within the SBIR program, and they have justification to go single source. They no longer have to compete because the SBIR program essentially did that on behalf of the US government ahead of time. That's a very powerful thing. This is a way where your technology, no matter where you develop it, could be that you worked an SBIR out of the Department of Energy. If it's got implications for NASA, NASA can go and use that phase 3 project or phase 3 contract and go sole source and utilize it. So there's a very strong capability of being able to find future federal customers for your SBIR contracts. And that's a unique feature of this particular program that is a real good benefit for small businesses. Continuing on, just how it looks kind of quickly, I won't spend too much time here, but essentially for most years, you got the solicitation release that comes out in January. You got from January to March to put it together your proposal. We spend from March until June doing our reviews and selections and announce in early June. And then you're at work starting, like in this timeline, roughly August, you get to work. This is kind of the rough timeline here. Overall, here's some of the demographics of what we've seen. Like, for example, for the 2022 phase 1 awards, we had a total of 333 proposals that we funded. 280 were SBIR and 53 were STTR. And some other statistics here that are interesting is, roughly speaking, about a third of our companies are first-time awardees. And most of our companies, you see that the one stat that says awarded companies, 80% have less than 5 employees. I think most of our companies, frankly, are a handful of people, like 4 to 6 people. That's not too unusual. And I do want to say that the SBIR program, we have a title of America's Seed Fund, and we're kind of proud of that. You can literally be working for another company, submit an SBIR proposal in your spare time, and until you get an award, you can keep working for the other company. But once you get awarded, then you need to pop off and start your own company based on that. We're very cognizant that there are plenty of people that have started their companies from SBIR funding, and we're kind of proud of that to keep it going. What do you get out of this? First off, the money is what everybody's needing and wanting, of course. But here's the big important thing. The SBIR program and STTR, we do not take your intellectual property. What NASA wants to do is, we know the areas where we're going to need technology in a few years. We can put that need on a piece of paper in the form of a subtopic, get companies to write proposals about how they'd provide that technology. And we're happy to pay that $1 million over 3 years just so that technology is up on the shelf for when we want to use it. We don't want your IP. That's not what the SBIR program does. So that's a very strong factor compared to venture capitals and other folks like that. And the other part about this in general is by getting an award, you do get somewhat accredited, so to speak. You have received a government contract, you've been awarded for that, and it's an innovative government contract. So it's a pretty decent plan for small businesses to try to get set up so that they are desirable for larger entities to be picked up. In federal contracting, large contractors need to have a small business subcontracting plan. The way that these large companies decide and pick amongst the small businesses has a lot to do with things like SBIR awards. They're much more likely to bring along an SBIR company and have that be one of their small business subcontractors, because that company's literally been awarded as an innovative company by NASA. So that kind of shows it reflects well on the larger organization. So how does all this work for you personally? As I said, the once a year window of opportunity opened and closed last January. However, this is the time of year that you can go to our website, and you can see where the address is there at the beginning. But essentially, if you just type in NASA SBIR into a search engine, you'll get to it. And what you want to do is you want to pull up the latest solicitation. In this case, it's the 2023 SBIR Phase 1 solicitation and 2023 STTR Phase 1 solicitation. The information you're pulling up, that solicitation is no longer open. However, we don't change very quickly from year to year. So it's really worth it for you to do a keyword search inside our existing solicitations and see if there's any subtopics that pop up as a result of that search. The subtopics are the research questions that I described earlier. At the top of the subtopics it lists the lead center, and you can get a point of contact from the same website for that lead center. And through an email, you can introduce yourself to where you will be talking to the leaders of that research topic. You get a chance to chat with them. And I highly recommend that, because all of these subtopics were written by scientists and engineers, which means that they aren't really written that great. So it's a lot better to have a chance to have some dialogue with the authors and kind of get a better sense of how things are going on. Unfortunately, you can't do that right now until the awards are announced out, because we're in a blackout period, but that'll be right around the corner. So this is what you should be doing in the off time while you're waiting for the next solicitation to pop up, is to, again, take a look at the existing solicitation, do a keyword search on behalf of your company, see what subtopics pop up, and get some dialogue going with the members of the SBIR team so that you can better get tuned up for your submission. I think I'm pretty much at the end of it. If any folks have some questions, I'd love to try to answer something really quick, but if in the interest of time, if we need to go, I totally understand.